Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and this is the only podcast where I talk about G.I. Joe in full detail. We go page to page, panel to panel, episode by episode. We're covering everything. And again, this week, we're back for Joe on Joe Illustrated, where we're looking at G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue number 76. Now, if you've been paying attention, listeners, this is it. This is the culmination of the Cobra Civil War, the big deal crossover that was fantastic because they didn't brand it as a huge, I guess it's not a crossover really because it wasn't crossing over, but they didn't brand it as like a huge big storyline, like part 1 of 5, part 2 of, it was just, it happened. You were a kid, you were a 13-year-old kid in September of 1988. You're reading G.I. Joe and you're like, yeah, it's pretty good. You know, I like it. Snake Guy's doing some stuff and all their guys are down in Sierra Gordo and that's fun. Then wham, next month, you get a literal civil war between all of Cobra, Destro's forces, and G.I. Joe. If you guys aren't, like, if you weren't excited by that when you're reading it in real time, you shouldn't have been reading comic books because it was absolutely dynamite. And it was a summer, as we learned last time, that G.I. Joe started shipping bi-monthly. So, or actually, well, bi-weekly rather. So it was every 2 weeks they were coming out with another episode. So this one also takes place in September of 88, where last issue took place in September of 88. So for today's podcast, we're going to forego the You Were Saying segments because we covered that last episode. And if you're wondering what is You Were Saying, you're like sitting there going, Joe, I'm a first-time listener. What is You Were Saying?
You were saying?
Well, that is where we look at other comic books that were on the rack and we kind of talk about the comic scene at the time. But I'm not going to do that today. We're going to get right into it, guys. Well, that is right into it after we hear from our sponsor, the Movies on a Meal podcast. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not 2 movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. We're back. And before we dig into 76, on a personal note, I just want to share, I got vaccinated this week. Very excited about that. I know it can be a hot topic, but I urge you guys, everyone follow the science, do your part, get vaccinated, get this country back and safe and back functioning again. It knocked me out though. I gotta tell you, that next day, man, my body was like, okay, we're done for today. We're going to take the weekend off, but I'm feeling great and I'm really excited. And that might mean, I don't know. It's a little, maybe I'll be at JoeCon. Maybe that's what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm thinking I want to travel to JoeCon because I haven't gone anywhere in a long time. And I think maybe JoeCon. So nothing's definite, but if we do, listen here and we'll get out there and meet some of you listeners and say hello to some of my friends out there that I already know from the show. And I think that'll be a good time. So it's on my radar. Also on my radar is the exciting news that they moved up the Snake Eyes release. So Snake Eyes is July 23rd, and this podcaster has a birthday on July 13th. So I know what's going to be my birthday surprise. Snake Eyes! And on that note, I love those figures. I think they look great. Sure, like conceptually, I think the Baroness works better with longer hair, blah, 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 all of whatever. But they got the character looking exactly like she does in the movie, which is pretty dope. And I think the level of detail is great. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see that movie. Moving on. G.I. Joe number 76. This cover is fantastic. It's by Ron Wagner, Bob McLeod. Oh, and real quick, before we even go any further, I'm so excited to get into this because this is a great ending to the story. I forgot to talk about social media. You guys are listening. It means you're probably on your phone listening to a podcast. It means you probably have internet access. And if you have internet access, then you're probably on Twitter or Facebook maybe, or maybe you're on Instagram even. Don't worry about TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. You're not going to find me on TikTok. So there's no Joe on TikTok. But there is Joe on Joe on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Follow me at Joe on Joe Pod. Say hello. Or shoot me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show. Let me know and on social, let me know. Was Cobra Civil War a huge turning point for you? Was that a big part of your G.I. Joe childhood? Because I know it was for me. This was an absolute epic storyline. So without any further ado, let's get to it. This cover is amazing. Oh, wait, hold on. Just because we're skipping You Were Saying doesn't mean we're going to skip.
Now, mass is ready.
You got to give Destro his due. And there he is. So Roadblock, General Hawk, and Flint on the cover of a, looks like a burned out Hiss tank. Well, it's funny because it looks like a Cobra Blue G.I. Joe Mauler. That's what it looks like. But I'm not sure what they're standing on. But amidst a field of flames and smoke and wreckage, this is a great cover. This is an iconic cover. This is one of those covers that sticks out in your mind. Couple things about it that I absolutely love. I love that they have Hawk intertwined with Gung Ho, like brothers in arms, like comrades in arms. They're like back up for the fight together because you see Hawk, his right elbow is kind of inching over on Roadblock, and Block's left leg is kind of arching over. I think that's just really nice, subtle placement. Now it might just be because like how else are you going to make that drawing happen? But I think it's cool because it means these guys are hunkered down. They're brothers in arms, that kind of a thing. I really dig it. I like it that everyone's battle torn. You know, and you know me, I love Ron Wagner's pencils. I'm here for him all day, every day. So his covers, his interiors, everything. And it's great to see Flint. Even though in this story, what's great is that, you know, he never gets off the boat, really. Flint sits one night and sit it out, but he's, you know, those serve who stand and wait, you know. Flint is commanding the thing from the flag. He never actually gets in the heat, which he talks about in this issue. So that's really great. But I absolutely adore this cover. Really nice covers, colors rather. I think they make everything pop. Yeah, so you really not much else to say about it. It's a great cover. Let's move on.
Yo, Joe!
All's Fair. You know, to finish that, In Love and War, but it's just called All's Fair by Larry Hama script, Ron Wagner on pencils, Fred Fredericks on inks. Welcome aboard. Rick Parker is the letterer, Bob Sharon is the colorer, Bobby Chase is the editor, Tom DeFalco, editor-in-chief. So we open on a big splash page. It's on the flight apron of Cobra Island Airfield, and it's one of Destro's Grenadier Generals giving his Sergeant Major guy, giving him an update. And this is for the readers, you know, of all that stuff that's going on. Remember, last issue was very tactical. It was totally enjoyable, but it was very, very much like a really more than normal chunk of the book was dedicated to moving the chess pieces on the field for the readers to say this guy's fighting there and they're taking over there. Like it was really, it was like a play set. This issue reverts back more to the, there's a little bit of that. There's certainly enough of it, but it's really more character stuff. And I think it's a really rewarding finish to the story. A couple things about this. One, this is only the fourth issue or something we've seen Destro in his outfit. I think it looks great. I would have liked to have seen a little more color definition, even though he's pretty much he pretty much matches the figure. Just that just the black on the black on the black with I guess I wanted to see more highlights and accents on his figure in this picture, although it's rendered lovely. And I think it's perfect that they have him standing in the rain, like Scottish weather, gloomy rain, whatever. He's the Scottish Lord. He just took over the airfield. I think that's everything about this works great. And what he's telling the Sergeant Major is that, Sergeant Major's giving updates. He's like, we're pretty sure they did this and this and this. He says, I don't want to hear probabilities. You send out recon teams. Yo, Joe! And as happens a surprisingly large amount in G.I. Joe comic books, G.I. Joe is just in a sewer grate underneath whoever the guy is that they're listening to. So this has happened a lot recently. I remember that Outback did this. They did this before, and now they're doing it again when they escaped the airport tower. So this is Falcon and his team. If you recall, after the Joes retreated with Serpentor and Cobra Commander retreated, everyone split their different ways. These guys were kind of isolated, and the only way out was back through the sewers. So Captain Min had shown up and said, they were not technically in the sewers, I guess. It was more of a drainage tunnel. But he's basically saying, we can get out this way, and it is a sewer tunnel. So it's a nice 4-panel. This is very Kirby-esque layout design here, like just big block close-ups and just set placements of all the action that's happening here. And we see here that Falcon's still trying to get some reconnaissance information, even though everyone else is like, we gotta go. I like that a lot. Falcon wants to get as much info out of the situation as possible. And Min is there, and who is it? Min and Dial Tone and Spirit and Gung Ho and Tunnel Rat. And there's an interesting thing with Tunnel Rat that's coming up that's a little confusing for me. But we see up here that Destro is Destro doesn't want to make another move until they see the recon reports. And if you remember, they weren't actually in the fight all that much. They did storm a little bit at the end, but they were waiting for everyone to wear themselves out. And then they kind of moved in and said, no, we'll take the airfield. Thanks very much. So he says, in the meantime, have the cook set up a field kitchen and give the troops a hot meal. And the men will appreciate that, Destro. Yo, Joe! So now Tunnel Rat alerts the gang that these Destro, let's call them Vipers, but his Iron Grenadiers, they're sweeping through this tunnel as the water's rising because of the rain that we saw in the previous issue. So this is where Min says we got to go into this sluice tunnel, and it runs underneath the main runway, and it's fed from a drain between the hangars. And so they have Tunnel Rat take point, Gung Ho take the drag and replace the crate. And this is the part that confuses me, because you have Tunnel Rat going, I hate, and he's got a flashlight in his mouth. He says, I hate this, because he's carrying a flashlight. He says he hates it. But he's Tunnel Rat. Isn't Tunnel Rat, am I forgetting something about Tunnel Rat? Was Tunnel Rat dossier like that he hated it, but he was good at it? Yo, Joe! I really, I might, I'm going to pause this real quick and look that up. Hold on. All right, I'm back. Interesting. There's nothing on Tunnel Rat's file card. And remember, guys, Tunnel Rat was the character that was modeled after Larry Hama. So maybe he was, putting some of his own spin on it. But nothing in Tunnel Rat's file card that screams that he wouldn't like doing this. So that strikes me as a little weird. I feel like he would be in his, in his element here. Anyway, on to the next page. Cobra Commander's headquarters. So now remember, Cobra Commander and Zartan and the Dreadnoks, they were teamed up. The Baroness was captured with Serpentor. And Zartan is basically running the show over here. So now we've still got Zartan still telling Cobra Commander kind of how to do things. They have to take the initiative or get crushed. And Cobra Commander being like, what's Serpentor going to do? it's basically Cobra Commander, or rather Cobra Fred Mander. He's clueless because he's not a tactical genius. At least Cobra Commander had been through some wars. Cobra Commander did kind of know what he was doing. Cobra Fred Mander doesn't really know what he's doing. And this is Zartan schooling him the whole time. And here we go with Cobra Fred Mander saying, we might do better to attack Serpentor. After all, he does have the Baroness prisoner, and I do value her, which elicits a surprise from Zorana, who is not a big fan of Baroness, of course. She's, gives him the old, you're worrying about that four-eyed bimbo, you'd think she gave you your job or something, and here Fred Mander gives up a little bit. He says, she was privy to rather sensitive and confidential information, including intelligence garnered from our spy bat. And then that leads us to remembering about that spy that they had embedded with Mindbender and Serpentor. These camera choices, and again, this, I've mentioned this a couple issues back, these storytelling choices of the way the comic plays out is very action movie. It's very movie. It's very cut angle. Like this is very storyboardy, and I love it. I think it works really, really well, especially for a story like this, where you've got a lot of moving parts. You got a lot of moving plot lines and people doing different things. So to not, instead of relying on a lot of those comic panel to panel kind of tropes or languages, not tropes really, but languages, it is just going cut, close up, insert, like wide shot, medium shot. Like that's what we're doing very, very much throughout this entire Civil War. And I appreciate it. I'm assuming it was on purpose because these guys are really good and really professional. So, Commander remembers that he had that camera. Remember, we talked about it, and I was pretty sure we saw the bat with the camera in his head get blasted. And sure enough, Yo, Joe! We see here that, yes, that bat absolutely did get blown to pieces, but it didn't knock it out of the game. It's still walking around. And Serpentor notices that he says, or actually it's Mindbender that notices that this one has been modified with equipped with a TV camera. And so that's when Serpentor shoots it, and now they finally lose their camera. Baroness still on the hood, and disappointingly enough, Baroness still has nothing to say. For one of the best characters in all of G.I. Joe, period, flat, and definitely one of the strongest female characters, and just a character who always has something to say, her silence has really been deafening throughout this entire adventure. It's very strange. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. It's weird. It is really weird. The last episode, she didn't say anything sassy. Here she is again. They show her she's wide awake. She's not unconscious, and she's got nothing sassy to say, and I don't know how to unpack that. So at the top, though, we do have Serpentor there. So this is when Mindbender is talking about how these bats can. It's funny though. This really strangely doesn't make sense either, because didn't Dr. Mindbender create the bats? But he says it's amazing how these bats can continue to function with half their mass shot away. You made the bats, Mindbender. Okay. However, Serpentor replies with Von Student had one eye and one arm when he tried to assassinate Hitler. The notes that Belomo has in the IDW hardcover say that the name is off. It wasn't Von Student, it was Von Stauffenberg. And if you've ever seen the Tom Cruise movie, Valkyrie, that's who he's talking about. He's actually talking about the character that Tom Cruise played in Valkyrie, the guy that was trying to assassinate Hitler. So that's kind of neat. If you've ever seen that as a little reference, there's your crossover for the day. But this page ends with catching up at the end of, because remember, Serpentor is paired up with the Joe team. So in the back of the column is the Joe team, and we see General Hawk, who's back in his normal gear, because again, last issue was drawn by what's his name? Batman artist. He's amazing. Why am I blanking on his name? Marshall Rogers. Yeah, it was drawn by Marshall Rogers. And so he had him in the old Hawkeye. Everyone looked great, but they were in there were some wrong outfits going on. So we got Hawk back in his regular outfit, and he's updating the Admiral with what's happening. Yo, Joe! And that call takes us to the USS Flag, which is in the middle of its own weather-related distress issues. and Flint's running the show from there. So he gives the landing craft tank the go-ahead, and it's basically a big flatbed lander that has a bunch of the G.I. Joe tanks on it. It's actually hard to tell from this. Later on, they name them out. They name check all of them as they roll off. But this drawing, the colors on it, the drawing is from a distance, so the details aren't great, and the coloring is just because I think it's in the wet, it's in the rain, right? So it would be hard to see through the rain. So the coloring is very blocky. But I think they got I think they got like a Slugger on there, and a Mauler, and Cross Country and his Havoc, and I'm not sure what else. I think there's supposed to be a couple other vehicles on there, but we'll find out. We'll get to that later. And then they also send up the Stealth Fighter, and isn't his name Ghost Rider? But it's the guy that they always forget his name. Hold on. Yeah, it is Ghost Rider. That's funny. I couldn't remember his name either, because that's the gag that no one can remember his name, but he's the guy that flies the stealth plane. So they launch the X-19, the Phantom X-19, which is a dope looking toy, man. That's a really cool toy. They launch that as this tank boat starts heading towards the island.
Yo, Joe!
And then this is the page. This gets weird. So back inside the tunnel, it's Tunnel Rat leading the way, and he's saying like the water's getting higher. I really hate this. And I don't know. I thought Tunnel Rat would be in his element. Isn't this where he's supposed to? And then Falcon's like, "You're such a pessimist. Think of it this way: it can't get much worse." Of course, as soon as you say that in any story, it has to get worse. So this time they get hit by thousands of rats, which is amazing. More so that Gung Ho just starts grabbing them and smashing them into the walls, to what appears to be Dial Tone's horrified face. Great, just great. And we see that they are in like the slop tunnels, and now realistically it's probably the like sewage, like the vehicle tunnels and stuff. But we have the Cobra, since it's kid friendly. It's they're the Destro's cook saying, "Just dump them slops down that storm drain." So we're supposed to think that, oh no, gross food is what this. Oh no, this isn't. It's got to be worse than food. And that stuff smelled almost as bad as your creamed chipped beef, Cookie. What do you, gourmet or something? Does Cookie end up trapped in the freighter? Am I getting a memory moment here, guys? Is Cookie one of the ones that gets trapped in the freighter? Maybe I'm making that up, but I feel like we see Cookie again. I feel like that's not a throwaway guy. I feel like Cookie makes another guest appearance.
Yo, Joe!
I'm back. I just took a prolonged pause because the guy cutting the lawn decided now was the right time to take it for a weed whacker. So it just took like an hour-long break. So I'm back. Give me a minute to catch up where we were at. So we're back out in the Gulf of Mexico, and now we're on that tank boat. It's got Psych Out and Recondo and Torpedo, and they are bringing the tanks in via their let's see. Hawk wants them to land on the little beach on the west shore. And we're getting some insight into the tactics that they want to use here. Psych Out's basically telling us that with them coming on the west side, Hawk is going to try to convince Serpentor to march around the long way around the volcano to attack from the north, which then would give Cobra Commander the only way out for Cobra Commander would be to run south, which would put him into direct conflict with Destro. So they're trying to do like a pincer movement to basically give him no way out, because between a rock being the volcano and a couple hard places being Serpentor, the Joes, and the incoming Joes on the beach, and Destro. So we see here at the bottom of this page, we see it's General Hawk basically telling Serpentor, we got people coming in, we can flank them, let's go. And we get our first warning of potentially the radar system that could foil the whole thing.
Yo, Joe!
Now, Fred Mander is very upset that the spy camera in his bat is not working. And again, we get Zartan reminding him that you got to pay attention to the important things here. don't worry about the spy bat. We're in the middle of a ground war here. And Fred is leaning too much on the sophisticated electronic warning systems, which is perfectly in character, because what was Fred? He was an inventor. You know, he invented the suit. He invented the pogo. Like, so his reliance on these defensive measures, such as the spy camera, such as the sophisticated electronic warning system. They're talking about here, their infrared, their radar, quote, umbrella. He's relying on that instead of on the human intel or the tactical decision-making, which is where Zartan's coming from. Zartan's more of a tactician. And this is, what's really cool is about this whole Cobra Island thing, is this is Zartan stepping up and showing us that he's more than just like a mercenary, that Zartan really does know what he's talking about. And we get a little bit more of Zorana kind of flirting with Fred Mander, where she says, talking about Baroness, I know you were just using her. I say good riddance to bad rubbish. She wasn't your type anyway.
Yo, Joe!
Zorana making her moves. Meanwhile, Zorana, don't you know Mainframe's the one for you? They were my favorite couple. I mean, you know, I love Flint and Jay, and Scarlet and Sam. I get it. But that Mainframe, that from the cartoon, man, that Mainframe Zorana relationship has yet to be topped in the annals of, you know, move over, Romeo and Juliet. Here comes Zorana and Mainframe. So meanwhile, back on that X-19, it's Ghost Rider again. And they're talking about the fresh coat of black ball paint on the radar. Now, a couple things in this little sequence that is confusing me. Well, one, I love that even in the midst of all this Cobra Joe-ness, so we're still introducing new toys and new concepts to it. Is great. Comes up, well, one, the X-19 and Ghost Rider, and then these bugs show up and they get put, like, there's still new concept that Larry's thrown into the story to keep even a new reader interested. It's really fun. I always enjoy that. That's one of the great things about J.J. is that there's so many characters, you can always throw new people in the mix. But I thought the whole point of the X-19 is that they wouldn't be detected on radar. But the first thing we get is and it's intermittent, but an intermittent blip, closing fast, low-flying aircraft. So the bugs see him, and they're able to shoot at him, you know, and they hit him a little bit. Now, he takes him out real easily, which is great, but he was still seen. I thought the whole point of this, the stealth bomber, you know, the stealth plane, was that he would just go right past him.
Yo, Joe!
And then, on Cobra Island, we see the guy says, the Secto Vipers and the bugs, they reported a radar blip, but their screen is empty, so that's good. He's off their radar. He says there is something out there, and it's right on top of us. So now he is on their radar. So how did it get so close without being spotted? And then this is a cool bit of tech where the X-19 is using the radar to guide the missiles that he's gonna, you know, that he's firing missiles at the building, and it's the radar itself that the missiles are homing in on. So then the missiles then blow up the radar. So that's great. So it's a great mission and a fun 2 pages, and I'm here for it. But you know, I was like, you can't be seen, so shouldn't he go in and out and be like a go? I don't know. That seemed weird to me. Like, it seemed like conflict for conflict's sake instead of being true to what that guy is, which is also what, like, Tunnel Rat. Like, Tunnel Rat should have been happy to be in the tunnel instead of being grossed out by it for the character moment.
Yo, Joe!
So now as Ghost Rider, or what's his name, as he takes off, we get some explosions. Some explosions at Cobra headquarters with, you know, Fred Mander and Zartan, and we see the return of Zartan's bow. This is cool. This is a fun. It's like an L insert kind of panel where there's a big explosion. This is a comic booky thing, so this is some comic book language. There's a couple insert shots to show the plane taking off, soldiers fleeing from this burning Cobra Temple, and then but that is inset inside of a larger panel where the only action we need to see is Fred Mander and Zartan, you know, surviving it, but also like, oh no, they're witnessing the destruction of their base. But also by extending that panel to the left, if you guys are looking at it, it's like a reverse L. by having that L, just kind of reverse part of the L, kind of go under those first two panels, it gives the sense of a bigger explosion without wasting space on a big explosion, if that makes any sense. You could have easily have done this in three kind of similar sized panels and just shown, but by and it's easiest if you're looking at this to understand what I'm saying, by like overlapping them, but they're not overlapped, they're inlaid, so to speak. It just gives this bigger sense of a bigger explosion than you would have gotten. And then you're also not wasting the space on the page. You can continue to tell story, which is all the soldiers fleeing and the X-19 taking off. It's really cool. It's smart. It's a layout. It's like a layout that usually you don't see. So I like it. It's fun. And so then Fred's telling people, pull the troops, and they're giving direct orders and stuff. And Zartan realizes that they're leaving a flank uncovered, and he takes off into the fight because Zartan knows what needs to be done, and it's about to get dope. Yo, Joe! So that tank lander hits the beach now, and here we go. We've got a slugger. This is Psycho. I like that Psychout's giving orders because he's relatively new to the team. I know Psychout's a little silly. He had radar dishes on his wrists. I always liked Psychout. I always thought he was cool. But he's kind of in charge of this little unit. So the Slugger, the Rolling Thunder, then the MBT Mauler, then the Havoc, and finally our boy Bridge Layer, driven by Tollbooth. Tollbooth getting a lot of chatter on Twitter with from our friends at What's on Joe Mind. Listen, I'm here for Night Force Tollbooth. I'm here for Tiger Force Tollbooth. I'm really here for Infrastructure Week Tollbooth. I feel like Tollbooth would be in front of Congress this week talking about the need for good infrastructure in America, because there's only so many movable bridges that he can carry across this country to fix these rolls and fix these potholes. Infrastructure Week, hashtag Infrastructure Week Tollbooth. I'm here for it. This is funny. As they're driving through, these tanks are like making their way through the jungle. The Crocmaster has blazed a trail for him, and he's literally on the side of the road with his pet crocodiles saying, give that Cobra Commander one for me. Like, everyone's on the side of everyone else in this. It's great. Yo, Joe! So Hawk, we learn, was not able to hold Serpentor back. So Serpentor has decided, now they did go around, he was able to convince him to go around the mountain, but they did not wait for everyone to get in proper position. So Serpentor just decided to attack without waiting for that flank assault, which are those tanks. So Serpentor's making his way through, and again, Baron is still trussed up to the front of that hiss, and Mindbender kind of telling us, the reader, but also using a character moment to warn Serpentor, stay back, don't expose yourself needlessly on the front line. And Serpentor retorts with, how can the troops respect me if I don't share their danger? And Hawk, into the phone, as just explosions are everywhere, says, psych out, get a move on. In other words, it's popping. We don't have time to wait for this. And this is the climax of the big Cobra Civil War. So everything's coming to a head. In the distance, you see the Cobra Temple, which was getting shelled and on fire already. Yo, Joe! So as these tanks are making their way through, Thunder runs into some quicksand. Listen, if you were a kid in the 80s, you assumed that as an adult you were going to run across the peril of quicksand approximately 2 to 3 days a week. And the fact that Thunder drives into quicksand, of course he does, because of course there's quicksand there. There's going to be quicksand there. The 80s taught us anything. You can't trust the road 2/3 of the time. And Thunder hits some quicksand. And so how are you going to get across quicksand? Bring in that toll booth. We get to see the bridge layer in action. Always here for bridge layer. Always here for toll booth. Fabulous. Yo, Joe! And now, because we're moving fast and loose here, we see the guys in the sewers. They get out of the tunnels, and they're going to emerge by the airport. Remember, which is weird, because so I guess it's the north end of the Sluice Tunnel, but so I guess it's the north end of the airport. Because they were at the airport and they were leaving the airport. But when they pop out of the sewer, they're still at the airport. So I guess it wasn't really a getaway from the scene. It was more of just we go a little further and we get out of the line of sight. We're not literally underneath them, so we get a little further from them. But as they do, they realize that Destro left. So the whole airfield's been deserted, and there's a ton of tank tracks that's moving from the airfield to the north, which is where the Cobra headquarters is.
Yo, Joe!
A great battle scene. There is a dude, and might it be a bat? I guess, let me think. The bats were whispered. No, it wouldn't be a bat. That's probably a person. Oh yeah, because there's a helmet. Is that a grenadier helmet? Either way, someone's got in that picture. It's great. They're getting just one of their legs is chopped off. There's a lot happening here. I believe it's the Rolling Thunder that's doing all this. And let's see, that's Cobra Soldier. Dreadnoks put down those grape sodas and help us back them up. And the Dreadnoks realize that surrender's probably the best move here. And well, not all of them, because remember, Thrasher's a moron. But they quickly get outgunned. We got Blowtorch. I love Blowtorch. And who's that? No, yeah. No, I was thinking Barbecue. No, that's Blowtorch. I love Blowtorch. He's great. I loved his figure, man. I know he's not used a lot, but there was something about that figure that was great. And Outback's there, and they basically they overrun the Dreadnoks. So the Dreadnoks are out of the battle. That's where we're at here.
Yo, Joe!
And now Destro, those were Cobra troops, those weren't Grenadiers. So now Destro's starting to join the fight. And as Psych Out can see, he's not mounting an assault yet. He's just spreading out into a skirmish line. Destro's smart. This whole thing, Destro's played really well. And they say, what's he doing? They said, what's Zorana doing here? She's supposed to be at the west defenses. And she says, we don't have a west defense anymore because they ran into the Joes. And so all the Dreadnoks are done. Commander and Zartan are screwed. And, well, this is funny. So Zartan was last seen running off into the action, but now he's back with Cobra Commander, and now he runs off again into the action. That's, it's funny. Where did we miss that? So he ran off. Hold on. I'm just going to rewind here. No, he runs off twice. That's weird. He totally runs off twice. That's, yeah, okay. Well, that's weird. So he runs off twice. So now Fred Mander is completely lost. He doesn't know what to do. Destro's moving up. The Joes are moving in. And Zorana has completely lost interest in them. By the way, the artwork in this is just stellar. I really love the detail that Wagner is putting into Fred in the Cobra Commander armor suit. Like, you see the layers of the suit and the mask and the man inside the suit and the worry in his eyes. Like, there's some really, really, really good acting in this. And again, at the end of this page, Zartan runs off with his bow, which he did 3 pages earlier.
Yo, Joe!
And this is the page that will live in infamy, guy. I love this page. We got Zartan standing on a hill. This is going to be a difficult shot, and it's told in eight small panels and one wide 1/3 splash. And Zartan says, but nowhere near as difficult as the one that took down the Hardmaster. So one, we're confirming and reminding you of his murder of the Hardmaster. And then he lets thwang an arrow fly into the sky. Then we see, so think about storytelling wise. We don't know what he's aiming at. I mean, let's assume you're not looking forward onto the page, but it's Zartan. He just shoots into the sky. The very next thing is drawn is his target, obviously. So the next thing we see, it's Mindbender and Serpentor. And, Serpentor is a big deal. He was the star of the movie. He was, a big major figure that was put out there, everyone had Serpentor. Serpentor had a big flying chariot. Serpentor was pretty dope. Serpentor screaming onward, victory in sight. Then we cut to the arrow arcing into the night sky, arcing upwards. Serpentor says, I can feel it in my bones. He says, he's talking to Mindbender. He says, like the day the Norman knights took the field at Hastings, now the arrow starts to arc downwards, and the Saxon King Harold was laid low, and then we get a shot of Serpentor's eye with an arrow inches from it, and he says, by an arrow, and that arrow nails Serpentor right in the eye, killing Serpentor. This was huge. And what a great drawing. The look of shock on Mindbender's face. Serpentor's head is out of frame, but you can see the cusp of his mask. You see the arrow sticking out of his eye socket. His hands in just a classic comic like pose of we're done here. This is a great page. I don't know if you guys check this, go back and reread this book. This page is, and it comes out of nowhere because they were winning. That's what's so great about the Civil War. Cobra was gonna win, or Serpentor was gonna win.
Yo, Joe!
And then not. And now we see Mindbender. Now I don't think they know yet. They don't know yet that Serpentor got shot in the eye. So Mindbender just goes running straight into Cobra Commander's lines, screaming, don't shoot, we can make a deal. And Hawk is nonplussed about this. He's not very happy about this. And Roadblock has a great line, Mama told me never trust anyone in a cape. And we see Mindbender saying, and so with Serpentor dead, we can combine forces and kick Destro off the island. And you, Fred Mander, will assume overall command. Of course. Of course, Fred agrees. And Hawk, standing next to Zartan, says, I'm disgusted. And Zartan's like, you're not the only one. So the only two real soldiers here that were really in this fight are both disgusted by the outcome here as Mindbender and Cobra Commander shake hands and find detente.
Yo, Joe!
Now Destro heads out to, in their words, parley. And he says, I think we've all had enough fighting. Give me the Baroness and I'll leave. That's all he wanted this whole time. He just wanted to come and pick his lady up, take her home. Now, she still has nothing to say here as Mindbender cuts her off this off the his tank. And Mindbender reminds Hawk that since your deal was with the late Serpentor, Hawk says, we can make ourselves scarce, right? The soldiers always lose and the politicians, the deal makers, always come out smelling roses. That's one of those like Larry Hama-isms that he always does so well in these books. To have someone make some political statement about the state of things as they're doing their job, seemingly without complaint.
Yo, Joe!
And so the Joes are just hoofing it back to shore. And Gung Ho says, when the shooting stops, all it ever means is that the backstabbing has begun. And we see that Destro is, and now this is, this is Gung Ho, and this is the squad from the tower. I didn't realize that. Yeah, this is Tunnel Rat and Gung Ho and Dial Tone. And as they kind of think they were found by Destro, but Destro tells them to pack it up and go home. The whole fight's over. And the head grenadier says that was hardly some campaign. We hardly fired a shot, and we got what we started out to get. And Destro says that's the right way to do it. Baron is still having nothing to say in this, but that's it for the Cobra Civil War, ladies and gentlemen. I love it. Twists and turns and surprises and real death. Oh man, I love it. And yeah, it's I never noticed before where was Zartan running off to, but he ran off twice. I don't care. It's great. Cobra Civil War is so great, and this is one of those comic stories that just happens organically because that's where it needed to happen in the storytelling. Although yes, it ran into issue 75, but this is issue 76. It's not like it culminated in 75. Where you get like the Phoenix Saga, which was X-Men 131 or 132 or something like that, or 130. to 138, like just weird numbers. It's not, everything doesn't always have to culminate in issue 200 or start in issue 250 and, it'll be the story that changes forever. It's just organically, as he was telling his stories, this is where he wanted to tell the Civil War. And so in the middle of this great run of G.I. Joe, you get the Civil War, which is just fabulous. I love it. I know you guys love it. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for the new listeners, the old listeners, and all the listeners in between. And remember, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.